Hello and welcome to today's late afternoon talk, Data-Driven Optimization in Insurance. Forget the hype and put the human at the center. Our attendee list verifies that we discuss a very relevant topic today, since we have the big pleasure to cordially welcome attendees from the US, from Europe and from Asia. My name is Christian Strauß, I'm an Head Value Proposition Insurance at Sülke, and I will guide you through the upcoming hour. Even though this is a remote event, we want to foster an interactive session, not only here in the studio, but also with all of you attending. This is facilitated by Slido, a tool that you can use to bring up questions and vote questions of others. The highest voted questions will be discussed live within the next hour in that round. Please scan the QR tag you see on the slide, and you can place questions throughout the event. We start with the first question to you, to the audience. In your view, what is the biggest hype buzzword regarding AI and data in insurance industry? Please answer with only one or two words. We will need the results in a couple of minutes. At the moment, several technologies with a lot of potential for the insurance industry are around, like edge computing, artificial intelligence, low-code or quantum computing. The problem, objective and fact-based discussions about these technologies are needed to realize the potential, but these discussions are often killed by a hype. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled by the potential technology brings to us, but overexcited discussion often result in half-thought-through solutions or proof of concepts that consume a lot of money but never make it to production, expectations that can never be met, or naive ideas like, wouldn't it be cool without a reality check? Thus, today, we want to talk about the potential of AI in the insurance industry beyond the hype. And equally important to discussing it with a beyond the hype attitude is to put the human at the center. Why? There are many reasons why the human expert remains key in the insurance value chain, being a trustworthy relationships with customers or complex decisions that require human experience instead of hard-coded algorithms. So, data-driven optimization should support these situations, and to make optimization and automation as effective as possible, put the human to the center in a discussion beyond the hype. It's a special honor and pleasure to welcome our three experienced experts in the studio who will shed light on the potential of AI in the insurance industry from a business, academia, and consulting perspective. So we have Kirill Pankratov, Head Transformation Commercial Insurance from the Zurich Insurance Group. He will bring in the business point of view based on his long experience in several roles on the business side at insurers. Then we have Lukas Stricker, Senior Lecturer at Zurich University of Applied Sciences. He runs various courses and is responsible for the curriculum at the Institute for Risk and Insurance. And we have Andrea Perl, Head of Data Consulting at Sülke. He delivers with his team advisory services that answer every day the question, what is in AI for me as an insurer and where are the biggest chances and risks? You see, we have an experienced round and all of them are familiar with looking beyond the hype of artificial intelligence in the insurance industry. In the meantime, we got some responses from the audience to our initial question. What is the biggest hype buzzword regarding AI and data in the insurance industry? Now let's start with an impulse from each of our speakers and have a first statement about the found buzzwords and your view on that. Lukas, may I ask you to start?
Of course, thank you, Christian, and thank you to the audience. I see that you have been active, and there's a little surprise that terms like chat, GPT, and generative AI are appearing here very prominently, because probably it's fair to say that with the appearance of ChatGPT in February this year, the public realization of the potential of generative AI and AI in general really has been elevated to a next level. And it does feel like we are at the brink of a period of time where we are facing a really major structural change. And it feels a little bit like the time in the second half of the 18th century with the introduction of the steam engine by James Watt in 1769 that really introduced us to the first industrial revolution. And if we can look at my first slide here, I really want, mindful of what I just said and mindful of the audience here today, I would really like to stress that quote by Paul Donovan, the chief economist of UBS Wealth Management, that despite of all what we just said, it's not the technology and it's also not the data that really does make this change, but it's how we use this technology. So it's much more about the people and how they apply these capabilities. And let's look at an example on my second slide here. This is from a second slide. Yeah, this is from an example from a customer portal in an insurance company that has been built. And where you can see at the foundation, the data is really the starting point, but this is just a couple of numbers. To make this useful for a customer, there is people that need to make this data relevant, and that requires, putting it into a context. But even then, it's only information, and only with experienced people, this can be transformed into actionable knowledge that really is relevant for the customer in the end. In this case, to be able to prepare for a tropical storm and be ready that it doesn't cause too much damage. So from the level of just data points, and I know the challenge that it goes with it to make those data points complete and accurate and up-to-date and available. But still, without people transforming this into information and knowledge, it is basically worthless. So again, my key message here, it's not the technology and the data alone, it's really how we use it that will make the change.
Thank you very much for that interesting impulse. Kirill, would you like to add up on this one?
Certainly, and first and foremost, thank you very much for inviting me to this late afternoon talk, Christian. It's a real pleasure to be here and have a conversation about this important subject. And just to further expand on what Lucas just mentioned, from my point of view, as a head of transformation, have an opportunity to see firsthand and experience firsthand how advancements in AI and analytics continue to shape insurance industry. And I think it goes almost without saying that those insurance companies that deploy innovative technologies already can see the benefits of them through enhanced risk selection, through better portfolio management, through greater customer servicing, and also improving their operational efficiencies. And this is absolutely paramount to continue the successful journey with regards to their business. However, as we discussed already today, it's very important to start thinking or continue thinking about the role that human experts play in this wider topic. And why I believe it's important to think about it, because human experts don't only implement and roll out data-driven solutions, they also play an absolutely critical role in creating these solutions and continuously improve them by contributing their own personal unique knowledge, their personal unique skills, expertise, and capabilities in order to enable the success of such data-driven solutions. I also think that it's important for us to talk about what organizations do to support human experts by prioritization of data governance, for example, or by fostering the culture of collaboration and enabling the free flow of ideas between different functions, regions, and territories. And also just providing a wider support to human experts during this phase of rapid transformation. So all of this, if done and implemented correctly, I believe should help us to bridge the gap between this big promise that the investment in AI, analytics, and data management is giving us, and the reality of life where such solutions need to be implemented practically. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy to be here today and have a dialogue about this topic.
Thank you very much. So I think we will have a very intense discussion about that when I see about your impulses. Would you like to close the impulse round then, Andrea?
Absolutely, thank you. So when we are ideating about use cases in insurance or also in general with data and AI, we usually think about technical problems at the beginning, right? So we saw it on the slide. In generative AI, we think about whether the model can accurately summarize a call that a call center operator just had, or we ask ourselves whether the model can actually write the email based on a couple of bullet points that we have given it. Then in more traditional machine learning use cases, churn, for example, the first question we ask is whether the model can actually, or how well the model can predict the churn of our client or the probability of our client leaving us. And also, for example, in next best offer, we always ask, well, how well can it predict the next product that the client or the customer would buy? Now, even in business intelligence, we ask ourselves, how can we transport the right data and visualize it the right way? And of course, these questions are all extremely important, but what is often forgotten is the human in this place. So in our experience, it's extremely important to bring these key users along with you on the journey from very early on. First, to make sure you're solving the right problem, to get their buying in implementation or operationalization, as what you want to do is really solve their pain with the solutions. Now, talking about operationalization, of course, the challenges vary completely, and we do have technical challenges as well. So we have data silos, we have different data standards, incompatibilities that maybe need to be solved with data pipelines, and sometimes even multiple sources of one single truth. But also here, in our experience, the challenges are greater on the human side, and it's so important to bring them along. So first, we sometimes encounter skepticism or even fear of data solutions, and it's important to explain to people what the technology can and can't do. And just now, in times of hype, people tend to overestimate the possibilities that this technology can do. So this then leads to unrealistic use case ideas, whether it's over or underestimated. And on the other hand, in data literacy, it's so important that the people actually and the workforce actually is enabled and taught to work with the data they get, to argue with the data they get, and finally, through that, create the value out of the data. And lastly, as you have said, since in data governance, we are now moving from the more defensive side to the offensive side, from the IT to the business side. It is a huge challenge to get those business stakeholders to accept their role as data owners. And it is important to take enough time and also give them the psychological freedom to make mistakes at first, so they would accept their responsibility. Now, with that, I would emphasize to put the human in the center of your data in AI endeavors, whether it is in the ideation or operationalization of solutions.
Thank you very much. Very interesting overview. So from your speeches, several questions arise immediately to me. Maybe we can start with 3 to 4 questions before we respond to the questions from the audience. So again, my request to the audience, please feel free to bring up your questions so we can have them covered later on. So I would like now to start with the first question to you. We heard that the human is in the center, makes totally sense, and it's not about tech, it's not about data, it's more how we use it, how we create it. So in the end, it's about create it, use it, consume it also as a user, and then assess the potential. Sounds like a very challenging task to me for all the humans out there. So to me, it would be very interesting, is there some sort of killer skill to be successful in that, to work with data, especially in the corporate environment? And is it rather about data or business? Or so maybe I can place that question to you, Kirill, about is there a killer skill out there?
A killer skill. I don't think that a single skill or a single individual defines success nowadays. I think that success is rather dependent on sharing various perspectives that are enabled by a cross-functional collaboration of experts or a group of experts that come together, and each one of them contributing their unique viewpoints, their unique skills, expertise, and capabilities to this wider dialogue. We also, I think, need to keep in mind that insurance industry is highly specialized. So therefore, quite often when we talk about tackling a particular opportunity or solving a particular problem, we need to quite often rely on our colleagues from various departments. And when I talk about it, I mean colleagues from underwriting function, for example, or claims function, or reservicing function, or customer relationship function. So it's really the combination of these experiences that help us to understand the problem or work at hand more holistically. But also, it's equally important to bring into these forums the technology perspective. And this is where we need to ensure that technology experts also contribute to the solutioning. And what I mean by that, I essentially refer to data scientists, data engineers, business analysts, which creates a very nice and very optimal mix where we have on one side insurance experts talking about the market dynamics, market trends that they observe. They talk about current and emerging customer needs. They also talk about wider dependencies within insurance ecosystem on one side. And on the other side, we have technology experts who basically help to understand these groups, the capability that advanced analytics, AI, and innovations in the data management space actually can help and solve for a particular problem or a task at hand. They also equally important for them to talk about the limitations of the technology. So it's through this type of collaboration where the next best level of insight or the next best value proposition can be created. Therefore, in my view, it's quite critical for organizations to foster the culture of collaboration and make sure that there are no functional silos that are created and that actually there is a free flow of ideas and point of views that is enabled within the wider organization. And then just to potentially even give a rough analogy, maybe I can use some other industries such as music industry as an example. In the past, it took on average 1 to 3 writers to produce the next best single. Today, it's not uncommon for a group up to 10 people actually working on producing that next best single song. So therefore, it again highlights the point that we need more human experts coming together and understanding the opportunities and the challenges more holistically, and then thinking about how technology can help them solve for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Okay. Not that surprising that it's not a killer skill, but on the other side, a bit surprising that the set of things you need is that big. So how to make people ready then for this? So we heard about all the dynamics, so avoid maybe stale skills, so that you train the skills and a couple of days later they are already not useful anymore. Collaboration, the knowledge about the insurance value chain, how the mechanics are working. Maybe also some sort of understanding of underlying technologies needed. And I would say maybe also a little bit of emotional stability, because you have to do the reflection all the time. Am I still on the right track? Is the use case really helpful for this? So that sounds like a big new field for academia, I would say. So I'm interested in your view on that, Lukas, how academia is preparing the new people for that.
And it's funny, and I'm very grateful for Kirill's introduction here to the topic, because in academia we actually talk about competencies rather than skills, because skills typically refers to a single proficiency, whereas a competency is encompassing all the related strengths that you need for a certain area. And I think that captures it much more, and that's actually what we are looking for. And let me give you an example here. So at the institute I'm working on, we are about to create a new further development course as part of our Master of MAS Insurance Management program. And it's called Data Competence in Insurance. So again, the word competence is in there. And the guiding question that we've asked ourselves in the creation processes was really, imagine a situation where an innovation partner like Sülke would be charged with a task to transform an insurance organization into a data-driven organization. What kind of skills and competencies would you expect or would be helpful for you to find on the insurer side so that collaboration can be a successful one and the transformation be done properly? So that's our guiding principle here. And it's quickly understandable that yes, there is an element of technical expertise that we need to portray there, even maybe some mathematical skills. But then there is the whole area of data ethics that needs to be included, and also an understanding of how does such a project, such a transformation impact the organization of an insurer overall. And all of that embedded in a solid knowledge of the business you're in. So I'm really looking forward to that program. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think so. Sounds like this. So cool. Great. So we talked about how to make people ready to work in that field and what is needed. So not only skills, but competences. Assuming that we are ready with that, and now it's to the point how to make it happen. So, and that question I would like to bring to Andrea. You consult with your teams about how things should look like, right? And then based on this, not to forget how things can be happen then. And what I've seen a couple of times is there are a lot of things that are needed to make things happen. And there are a lot of elements that are not so obvious, like the data stewards, right? So let's say maybe the unsung heroes of analytics. They're very essential for this, making data available so that you can use it. But at the same time, as you can imagine from unsung heroes, they are not getting the appropriate stage for their role. So, and to me, it would be interesting, why could that be the case? So especially in the example of the data stewards, why could we tell them unsung heroes? And maybe would you like to be a data steward?
That's actually a very interesting question. Now, in my experience, one of the main reasons why data stewards are perceived to have an unattractive job is actually a lack of leadership. Maybe I can explain on an example. So let's take a hospital, and to simplify, we have doctors and we have janitors, right? So I think it is quite clear that the doctor has quite an attractive job. He is directly making patients healthier, he is helping them out, so his intrinsic motivation would be quite high, one would imagine. On the other hand, the janitor, in my view, has exactly the same part in the value chain of the hospital. Through his cleaning, he also ensures that those patients are getting cured. And now, in my view, it is a manager's job to give the janitor purpose in what he does and to show him why he's doing his job. And in data stewardship, it is very similar, right? So data stewards, they are cleaning data, they are putting information into data catalogs. But most of the time, or what we see a lot, is that they really don't know what they do it for, right? And it's now, I think, a great chance, also in insurance, as we move to a more offensive data strategies, and we have these larger portfolios of use cases to actually make the link to what data stewards do and maybe show them if you put in this customer record correctly, then the sales guy can go out and actually approach this customer with his interests and have a much better sales conversion or something in this direction. And additionally to that, with newer methods we are now applying, such as data mesh or data as a product, it actually allows to backtrace all the sub-analytical products that lead to a final one. So it would be possible, or it will be possible, to give data stewards credit much better. And to your last question, whether I would like to be one, in the old world where I'm an unsung hero, of course not, but let's look to the bright future, and when these heroes of analytics are sung because they are providing the data quality we need, then I would very much like to be one.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm crossing fingers that maybe in the future that could be a second path. Thank you. So we talked about the competences, about how to make it happen. And one element that comes up again and again, I would say, can be summarized as culture behind it, right? So we heard about the lack of leadership from you, then giving a purpose. In the Impulse sessions, we heard about the transformation to get buy-in for the operationalization of all this, maybe also allowed to do mistakes. And since we are in a Beyond the Hype session, I take the hardest one when it comes to scale, which is culture. So how to scale culture. And so that's again a question I would like to bring to you, Kirill. So culture failure obviously can have dramatic impact. So in here that could also be valid for data. So people must use data, the CEO must trust the reports and the people that created it based on whatever data. So how to influence the underlying culture behind the data and also to praise quality of data throughout a big corporate that's maybe operating globally, so that you can really do benefit from data and data analytics.
So if I am to summarize, the question is about culture and improvement of the data quality. And I think I like what you mentioned in your question. So Christian, I think you mentioned that we need to be a little bit more positive about it. And I really, really like it, because sometimes when I think about some phrases such as we need to correct data quality, there are absolutely correct phrases to use, but let's agree that they have a slightly negative connotation or tone to it. And I personally think we need to also spend more time highlighting the positivities and lead with a positive mindset and a positive message and reinforcement. And what I mean by that is that we do need to celebrate successes when accurate and timely capture of the information at the required level of granularity is linked directly to the positive outcome for the business. And Andrea already mentioned an example. So let's say, so we, as a result, let's say, as an insurance company, achieved a cross-sell. And partially, the reason why it was so successful because the information about this potential opportunity was captured at the right moment in time to the required level of detail. So therefore, the celebration of the success is not only for people who actively try to shape the solution for our customers, but also for the people who supported them in making sure that this information was captured accurately and correctly. So that's probably point number one for me. Another point that I think is important for us to think about is how do we direct the focus and attention of the people who are helping and employees who are helping to capture the information. And roughly speaking, we can split the data that we're capturing. Again, it's a very rudimentary split between critical data. And what I mean by critical data, it's the data that we absolutely need to strive and do our absolute best to get right every single time. Such examples as data required for financial reporting or for regulatory disclosures or governance and compliance is something that we need to be absolutely clear that we need to drive as much accuracy as we absolutely can. But then there would be sometimes instances when we will be making our decisions or maybe making our decisions on the data that is partially complete. I primarily refer to the external data that is freely available in the public domains. And although this data is vast and represents great opportunity, it's quite seldom when it's absolutely clean and absolutely perfect. And if you ask me, if I need to make a decision whether I would opt for an option where I can make my decision on a partially complete data, well, with obviously full understanding what are the limitation and what part of this data is incomplete, or make a decision without having any data point, I think many people would opt for the first option. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I'm mentioning it is that we need to help employees to focus on the most critical elements so that they know where most of their time and attention should go to. Mm-hmm. Another perspective, I think we also need to look at what I mentioned earlier about cross-functional collaboration. Many insurance companies, they're complicated or complex organizations, right? So they have various departments, various divisions, subsidiaries, and so forth and so forth. And there are a lot of dependencies when we talk about either underwriting process or pricing process or customer service process. So therefore, it's not only important to highlight to individuals what role they play in helping to improve data quality, but also that they're part of a bigger and greater organizational effort. So they don't feel really alone on this journey, but they actually understand that what they're doing is not only helping them, but also helping their colleagues in the wider organization. Mm-hmm. And maybe the last point that I want to make is that when we talk about applications of AI and advanced analytics, we quite often talk about actually its usage for solution development, right, or data-driven insight production. But also, we should be considering adoption or leverage of AI for potentially aiding people during the information capture process. So, for example, can AI do a proactive suggestions or recommendations to people at the moment when they're capturing the data of what type of information needs to be entered and where? That obviously can help to tackle some of the notorious challenges that insurance industry, and not only insurance industry, I think many industries are experiencing, where some of the information gets defaulted to miscellaneous others, or just having an incomplete or empty data fields. But also equally, it can make the job of people who are involved in capturing information and data more enjoyable. Because they can spend their time more on value-adding activities and less time on more routine and homogeneous tasks. So that's my perspective, Christian.
Thank you.
And if I may add, just
absolutely.
building on you, Kirill, because I think it's a wonderful example, again, from my opening statement. What is data quality? There is no absolute, terminology for that. It's the usage of the data that will determine what data quality means. If you use it for one thing, an approximation may be good enough, whereas in another case that wouldn't work at all. And then the other thing is, I think, a real challenge. Going back to you, Andrea, also. People who enter data are often not the ones that use it then, which is really bringing up that famous old question, what is in it for me as a person putting it in? So again, you go into organizational questions, what are the incentives? Are these people incentivized to just hack in data as fast as possible? Well, then you shouldn't be surprised at the results in the end. So it's, again, a competency overall.
Thank you for the answer. So we heard quite a lot of times now that the collaboration, cross-functional and maybe a one-team mindset is important to bring together all the different pieces. And out of this, we have a very interesting question from the audience. So obviously, or that's a known thing, a team is better than the sum of its individuals. Is technology kind of a team member? And I would like to bring that question to you, Andrea. So as said in the introduction, you help with your teams, insurers, to define how things should look like, but also implement it and bring all the skills together that are needed then by a business and that are provided by academia. So what is your view on that based on your project experience? Is technology a team member or a tool, or how could we see this, or should it be?
Yes, I mean, it's a greatly phrased question, and I want to refer back to you, Kirill. I think in my view, technology is not a team member, but people who know about technology should be within the teams, right? So we are talking about data scientists who are like the mad scientists working in the lab, trying to predict whatever should be predicted. We have data engineers who are like the building people who are building data pipelines and connecting data silos and data sources, and so on. So I think this part, or those profiles should be part of those multidisciplinary teams. What I wanted to add here is there is this one role that has now started to arise, which is this so-called analytics translator, or some companies call them in-house data consultants, which are now experts in one of the single fields, so technological-wise or subject matter expert-wise in insurance, but have enough skill so they can actually translate between those people. Because a lot of times we encounter that the people actually don't understand each other since their subject matter expertise is so strong and so deep.
Okay, thank you. So if I understand you correctly, it's about translating between the worlds, and with this, make technology in the end definitely a team member. Great. So there's another interesting question that fits here very well. So also working with assumptions, assuming that we are able to bring together all these skills and bring in technology and the special matter experts and all this to a powerful one team. And now I maybe rephrase the question a bit or extend it. How can companies drill down their data silos with that power? Or maybe also, is it possible to tear down the data silos, or should it be a greenfield activity or whatever? And maybe that question again to you, Kirill.
Sure.
I think out of working in business and having that long track record, you have seen one or two data silos, I might assume. So also you have the characteristics in mind. So what would your answer be on, or maybe some best practices when you combine technology and humans, putting the human to the center and think beyond the hype, how to tear down these data silos then?
Yes, it's a very good question, because I think first and foremost, companies should invest in building a robust data foundation. Because when we think about organization, they all have their own org structures and functions, and these are created for a reason. They're created for a reason to make sure that their operations are efficient and that the respective function is doing what is designed to do. But obviously, sometimes it results inadvertently in some of the functions building tools, applications, and solutions that are the most relevant for them. So, for example, reservicing function can produce applications that are better suited to help them with the risk servicing. Underwriting can build applications that are better built for underwriting, and so forth. But when we talk about human experts, that is the key theme of today's conversation, we humans, we don't think necessarily functions when we talk about data. So therefore, it's quite important to make sure that there is a flow of the information from those solutions, technical solutions, into the robust data foundation that will help to produce a complete and comprehensive view on whatever needs to be analyzed by a human expert. So this is, I think, is a key ingredient to success, so to speak.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe I can add from our experience, also going back to the original question, how can we break down these data silos? In my experience, or in our experience, the only way to go is through use cases, right? So you choose one use case you want to build, and you build technological foundations and organizational foundations for this use case. And at the beginning, this can be in one data silo, right? So to break down the data silos, what we usually do, we then just add data from a second silo and create a new use case through that, and take the organization step by step forward along these ever-growing use cases.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's a very important point that you're making, Andrea, that, and the use case doesn't necessarily need to have a definitive end, right? So once you demonstrate the value, you can expand it and to more than just one function, right? So start small and grow from there is one of the good approaches.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I would like to take up one statement you made, Kirill. We think about data, not about functions, but we think about data. So it's not only about what use cases could be implemented with that data, but maybe also where is the data coming from. And there's, again, a very nice question from the audience. So that especially the results from generative AI are coming from data that is not under the control of a company. So all these big machine learning models need a lot of training data, and this is not under the control of a company. So should we maybe, since we cannot control it, be some sort of scared about the results we must use? And that's again in the direction of culture, and maybe also the quality of the results. So now we can even now generate slides, meeting minutes, all that stuff. So again, the culture about data and the awareness where it comes from, is this also a topic in academia?
Absolutely, and I think we should be scared to a certain extent. Probably not in the amount of craze that is going on at the moment, which is probably a bit of a marketing spin. But I think there is some real fundamental concerns behind that. With what are these models being trained is a huge power at the moment, because it really directs then many things afterwards. And I think we need some transparency about that. I think at some point, by the way, in academia, that's a real topic, because students start to use ChatGPT for their bachelor thesis,
exactly.
For all kinds of material. And that is fine, in my view. It can be a help, but it should be transparent. It should be clear, has this been created by yourself or by an artificial intelligence? And as long as that is transparent and almost watermarked, I think we can all profit from it. If we don't do that, and that's really the context of the whole technology, the societal context that needs to grow with it, with every technology. Whether this moratorium that Elon Musk and Juveri is proposing is the right way, I don't know. But something of that kind needs to be happening, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
And, would you like to go first?
You go.
Sure. It's just interesting what you mentioned, Lucas. Definitely, it's one of the areas that may represent an opportunity. But Lucas, as you mentioned before, I think we need to also look at it with a healthy amount of skepticism. Because these pre-trained models, they don't come as one size fits it all. So therefore, human experts with the industry and knowledge domain should be involved in actually understanding these models, understanding whether actually they were even trained on the applicable data set or not, put these models through a rigor testing, and also think about what type of governance mechanism and ongoing controlling and monitoring mechanism could be implemented before even thinking about implementation of it.
I just wanted to add. Yes, sure, thanks. So I just wanted to add, now the rise of ChatGPT has really pushed the urgency forward to have AI literacy in our communities and also in the workforce. And I think it has always been this way, right? There is a new technology coming, and then us humans need to learn how to handle it. And I think at the moment there's quite a lot of risk in there with those tools. We see, many people actually posting company secrets into ChatGPT, asking to summarize something, and this, of course, is a huge risk. So I think right now it's very important that we teach our workforce of how to use those tools and put our security and compliance boundaries in place, so we can actually leverage the advantages.
And there is a danger, that people that are already very proficient about it, they can profit a lot, and others are then left behind. So there could be a bigger divide coming out of it.
Thank you. So that divide is a nice transition to the next question, and it's also related to what we discussed. So when I look back at the discussion, we agreed that we have to be positive, also celebrate data quality, celebrate results, maybe also implement light tower projects and how to make it happen. And there's a question, what works better to scale data-driven insurance? Is it rather a top-down analytical strategy or bottom-up with POCs to implement at scale? And to me, there are two perspectives on this. One is, again, the blueprint approach. So that would be then go to Andrea, and the other one, maybe some experience explanations then from bigger companies that would go to Kirill. So both perspectives are very important. So who would like to start to bring the answer to that?
I can start.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So in our experience, we have seen that many POCs have been done in the realms of data and AI. But even though the POC itself was successful, meaning that within the model we had a sufficient amount of prediction. For example, in claims automation, we have done one project. But the real challenge then lies if you want to operationalize this successful POC, you stand in front of a completely different reality. You need your data infrastructure, technological infrastructure to be in place to set the use case on top of it. Like we have said in the entry, you need the people which can actually operate it, interpret it, and so on. So I think, in my view, a top-down approach here is more effective. Of course, if the organizations are also interested to do that. Because if you do it top-down, you can actually set up your use case portfolio in a way where the return of investment for single use cases and the amortization, especially for the technical infrastructure, can be spread out. And thus, you have a much clearer view on the business case for data through that, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's a very good perspective. I'm under personal opinion that the best ideas are coming usually from the people who are closest to the customers, who are closest to the distribution partners, who are in the market on a regular basis. So, having said that, though, I think still companies should invest in building analytics and data management capabilities so that those subject matter experts with good ideas know where to bring those ideas in and know that there is actually a function or an area within the organization that can actually assist them to implement and launch it. And also, there is an area in the organization who can think about scalability and the further potential of such solutions or proposals for solving certain challenges.
Thank you.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Kirill. I absolutely agree. I think we need to give people out in the business which are close to the customer possibilities to bring use cases to some organized central function, because through that you set standards, right? And then you can maybe build, or you see the real kind of costs to a use case based on what infrastructure you already have. And what we see sometimes is that if you don't do that, like you have described, then we have a chaos in the company and we have different standards, and this just isn't effective.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I really like it that you say start with the demand, start with the user and the customer. That's the main point. There's another question from the audience. I would like to triage then to you, Lukas. We already talked about the answer from academia to that demand of a very broad competence set or a very broad skill set, also mindset, emotions, and all these things are very important. And we have the questions or the question: what roles will be important to driving forward the conceptual development of data and risk analysis? And do we have the right people with the right skills? So when you ramp up that new course, then I assume no, because or you say we need even more of them. But what's your view on that?
It's a very good question, and I'm sure my colleagues will help me answer it, because it probably has many dimensions. And let me expand the question a little bit, because I think this whole data analytics element has really a very transformative power in the sense of an organization overall. How do we organize ourselves? How do we take decisions in an organization? Is it just hierarchy that demands? Or is it actually fact-based? And then it really doesn't matter who takes the decision, it's just the facts. And so roles could be shifting dramatically if we think that to the end, But for the specific technical roles, maybe Andrea and Kirill, you may be better positioned to answer that.
I mean, we basically have two choices. We can either upskill existing subject matter experts, but this only goes to a certain extent because they most of the time already know a whole lot of topics. And that's when we reach the boundaries to then build up or employ specialized data scientists or data engineers. And I think since every organization is different, it's really also an organization's management job to set up those teams accordingly, and especially don't load too much expectations to gain data expert knowledge on already existing subject matter experts from the business, because the job profiles actually get technically quite quickly.
Maybe just to add to that, when we talk about onboarding new employees into the organization that have a solid technical background, but who may potentially be coming from outside of the industry, it's important to have a robust onboarding and training plan that will help people to understand the insurance business and be the most effective in the roles that they're doing. Because again, subject matter expertise and knowledge of insurance is what makes it powerful.
Another interesting aspect related to that question is, what is the value of experience and versus this analytical thing, which in itself doesn't really require an experience in itself. So I don't have the answer there, but I think that's one of the things where we will see more changes that we are aware of today.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, maybe you need experience to assess at a glance if the analytical outcome can be valid or not, especially in a complex analytical environment. Thank you very much for expanding on that question. Since we say look beyond the hype, I'm happy that this question was brought up by the audience. So what is the business potential of generative AI and solutions like ChatGPT for the insurance industry? So there are some use cases already implemented around, like having it in the call center for voice to summary, voice to insight. So I guess there are quite a couple of business opportunities. However, we want to look beyond the hype or stay beyond the hype. And again, I guess that question goes to the three of you. I would like to start again with Lukas and ask, is the business case modeling or business case analysis also something you envision for your upcoming course at academia? Because that can be a valid point for the future. I have data capabilities, I have my data ready, but what's the business case behind it?
Also, we are a school of economics, so yes, we have to take care of that aspect, absolutely, and it is firmly embedded in our curriculum of the MAS. So yes, but there is obviously then adaptations that we need to think about in that context, and I don't think we've come to the answers yet. So yeah, no, it's an interesting area.
Yeah. So here we are still in the beginning of evaluating this. So Andrea, based on your discussions, recent discussions with insurance customers, do you also already have some patterns, clusters where you say these are the business use cases or the really valid, sustainable business use cases for generative AI?
Yes, I mean, so basically generative AI can, summarize, compose text, react to text. And I think the business potential as a whole is quite large, as people can already feel if they use ChatGPT online, right? So I have taken some example use cases with me that we have thought of. So for example, in sales, it could be used for some real-life training scenarios to train our salespeople to have these real-life training experiences at a lower cost. It can be a good information provider. For example, we have this one showcase that we named Ask Your Documents, so you can actually upload your internal documents and then in a conversational way actually ask what is there. In underwriting, this technology could enable us to find necessary information quite quickly. Of course, it should be validated. In servicing and operations, it could support with the whole customer interactions and collect information with us, have some process optimization there, and very similar in claims. So I think the business potential is quite large. What, in my view, companies are underestimated at the moment, since we are in this hype, is really the legal security and compliance aspect of it. So I think the smallest part should be in use case implementation or ideation, and a much larger part in actually securing that no confidential information is leaked, that we can actually work with client data, or else it is taken off before we send it. And I think ultimately it would really need possibilities to work with those models on premise. Otherwise, the scope suddenly narrows quite a lot.
Just perhaps, just to add to Andreas and Lucas's points, insurance companies manage large volumes of data in general, and
unstructured data.
Structured and unstructured, exactly. So unstructured data could represent a significant opportunity. The unstructured data takes many forms. Yeah. So be it policy wordings, be it claim adjuster notes, be it emails, be it submissions, and so forth and so forth. So definitely AI and advanced analytics can play quite a significant role in helping to uncover some of the relevant trends, help with proactive recommendations and advice. But again, just to reiterate what you mentioned, Andrea, security, compliance, and ethical considerations should play a vital part when we consider such models.
Thank you very much. That also sounds like an optimistic view. I really like that, because that's also some sort of mantra throughout the hour. But stay beyond the hype, and don't forget all the legal aspects, the technical aspects, and really consider the business case. So looking at the clock, even though we have a couple of questions left, maybe we can cover one more. Yeah, I think we covered most of them, and we are already nearly at the end of this hour. It was a very enjoyable discussion with you. Thanks a lot to the audience for your inspiring questions, and of course to our guests for that insightful, very broad, very comprehensive discussion. We will send a follow-up to the attendees, including a recording and a survey, a quick survey, so please take your time and provide feedback to us. Besides, please do not hesitate to approach us directly in case your question was not answered in the session. You will find the contact information in the follow-up material as well. And to close the session, I would kindly ask the guests to give, or the three guests here to give a quick statement, maximum 2 to 3 sentences, about the following question, about the following maybe takeaway statement. So, what is the most important thing to overcome the hype and really benefit from data in a long run?
Who would you like to start?
Maybe with Lucas.
Thank you. So, I think embrace technology, absolutely, no, but be mindful, how you use it, because that's where you make the difference and where you can do a positive or a negative thing. And this is really about having the right people at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Again, it's all about people, even though it's technology. Thank you. Kirill, Matthew, head up.
Well, I'll just reiterate what I already mentioned. So think and focus on customer needs first, on the needs of your employees and wider stakeholder group. And just keep in mind that AI, analytics, data management, and technology are the enablers, not the end goal. Mm-hmm. That would be my concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. And with this, it's also part of the team to reference to one of the questions. Great. Thank you. Andrea.
Sure. Well, if you think about implementing data or AI use cases, don't forget to bring your technology and especially your organization with you.
Great. Thank you very much. Many thanks for your statements. And with this, I'd like to say goodbye and wish you a nice afternoon.